What do the Baba Yaga and the dream catcher, as it's so called, have to do with one another? It's actually quite a bit. There's a lot that they are linked with. And as you'll see, this may not even be, well, it isn't, a dream catcher. We'll get to that in a moment. Some of the names that our northern pagan ancestors called the bear. I've mentioned this previously, that they had a lot of different names for our bear, names of veneration. And so I made a little list. I'm going to read them off here. Grandmother, grandfather, I said them before. Apple of the forest was another one. Pride of the woodlands was another. Midvi, or Midvid in Russian, was another. Lord, master were two others. Worthy old man. The golden friend of fen and forest. Daschontier. Now that last one, Daschontier, that's German. And modern translation, modern German, has it mean the beautiful animal. However, the etymology of the word deer, D-E-E-R, shows that word tier as meaning deer. Deer is a newer word, though, as it's applied to like the white-tailed deer. Etymology shows that actually that word, in Old Norse it's D-Y-R, deer, means a wild beast. So the Daschontier is the beautiful wild beast, the golden friend of fen and forest. So those are some of the names of veneration that our northern pagan ancestors, there's more, had for our ancestral bear in nature. Now, there has been so much that has been covered up in our lore. I'm reading a 1898 edition of the saga of Cuchulainn, Celtic Cuchulainn. And in the introduction, they come right out and they admit that when the monks were doing the translating of these sagas, that they would manipulate what the saga actually said to make it more Abrahamic friendly. So it did not contrast the belief that they were forcing our ancestors to believe in. So they would manipulate it, or they would just totally change it entirely. And another thing they would do, and this is admitted to right in the introduction, 1898 edition of the Cuchulainn saga, they would just leave it out. And one of the areas that they left out was reincarnation or rebirth, because that rebirth through ancestral lines, through our homeland, from our ancient folk soul, clashed with what they were teaching. So what did these monks do? They just left it out. They stopped teaching it. It wasn't things that were written into the original sagas, just gone. That happens oh so often, even in our own translations, especially the English translations from Abrahamic translators that we have, dated right around that same time, mid-1800s or so. So just read a couple little things out of this book, because other than those names that I just read to you, our ancestors also had names for Ursa Major, the Great Bear. Now, they called, that was a she-bear, known as a she-bear, and in Northern Europe, she went by the names of Ursula and Artio, both bear names. The Christian Church later adopted the bear goddess Ursula, transforming her into Saint Ursula. So there's another manipulation. The Virgin Mary, too, became identified with Artemis, and the bear medieval writers noted that the bear was her animal, the mythical figure of Mary, who gave birth at 13 years old to the mythical figure of Jesus when she was impregnated by a ghost who they call Sophia. Okay. So a couple other things, because modern times has like Thor's horned wild beasts being goats. So let's just take a look at the silliness, because you only know what you know. You only know what's been taught to you. If you don't do any reading on your own, no researching on your own, then you only know what you know. And if those goats, remember the third generation concept, if those horned wild beasts were made goats, well then by the third generation it becomes fact. It becomes fact. And that's what you know. So, and that's all you know. All right. In both the New World and Old, the bear was the god of vegetation who suffers and dies and is reborn. In Sweden, the straw bear was replaced by a straw goat. Like the bear, the man acting the goat was led from house to house, but in the end, the straw goat was ritually killed. The actor feigned death and came to life again, for the god of vegetation must die to be reborn. Again, rebirth. Now, this author, like so many others, eliminates many of the other cycles of the bear and says that the bear was only related to vegetation and things like this, that is, or fertility, let's just say that. There is so much more to it, because there was many cycles to the bear. Actually, there was 3 cycles to our bear. So to just relate it to one cycle, which would be from the beginning of the northern pagan year to the end of the northern pagan year, that 9 months, basically from about March to Samhain, right around November. Remember, we're talking about lunar cycles. So, but that bear was replaced by straw goats in Sweden. So the Julbock is a modern thing. It's not an ancient thing. What would be ancient would be Thor's horned wild beasts, being the deer. What is the deer? It's a wild animal. It's a wild beast. Cosmically, Thor's horned wild beasts then are Ursa Major, the bear, because you have the 2 cigar galaxies that protrude off of its forehead that make the horns. But they talked about the being a bear, and until the beginning of this century in England, on the day after Plough Monday, the first Monday after Epiphany on January 6th, a procession of young men led a man dressed as a bear from house to house. They called him the Straw Bear because his costume was made of straw. And at each house, he danced for money. Likewise, in the farming villages of Germany and Czechoslovakia, in late February or early March, a man dressed in straw and called the Fastnachts bar, or Shrovetide bear, was led by a rope from door to door. In some communities, he wore a bear mask. In others, he dressed in bear skin. At each house, the straw bear danced with the women and girls and was given in return food in return and money. Everyone had to dance on that day if the grain and vegetables and flax of the coming year was to thrive. And it goes on. The author also points out in that book that February 2nd being Groundhog Day in Poland, Hungary, and Austria is still called to this day, as I pointed out in a previous video, a Bear Day. So Groundhog Day in America supplanted Bear Day. What has this got to do with the so-called dream catcher and the Baba Yaga? Because just like what happened in Norse and Germanic and Celtic lore happened in the Americas as well. As a matter of fact, I've got a 1916 book that the author says Christians, again, admitting it. It's in there, it's in print, but you only know what you know. That the Great Spirit or Great Father, as he's referred to, is not pagan. That is a Christian implant into paganism by the third generation. It's fact. I've got another 1916 book. Another 1916 book written by an American Indian woman who states that when they got here, when Red Man got here, there was a white man already living here and all over the entire country. And that white man took them in and taught them everything that they needed to know, traditions and customs, and had places on top of mountains, taught them what they needed to know. And that over the course of time, they intermarried with them. They said they were extremely, they were civilized, extremely intelligent, and this is how you know it's not a Christian interpolation into her story, because she said that they were more virtuous and moral than the Christian white man that they were dealing with at that time in 1916. So there is absolutely no way Christian interpolation into that story is going to say that about themselves, that the pagan white man that was on this in this country, admittedly for hundreds of years before the Red Man got here, was more moral, more civilized than the Christian when they arrived. All of that is eliminated, and that is all protected. The Red Man being a Native American is protected by U.S. code, and that's why you don't hear a lot about that. But by the third generation, white man wasn't here before Red Man. So they that woman writing that does state that they left one day and said they'd be back, and maybe that's why the Red Man trusted the Christian man when they got here, because by the time anybody came back, by the time white man came back, they had already been all Christianized for quite some time, and Red Man trusted them because they were waiting for a white man to come back. They didn't know they would be so morally depleted that Abraham had made them. So that all being said, their lore has been manipulated as well. And the Iroquois lore, the Iroquois Indians up in upstate New York, northeastern New York. The Iroquois creation story is that there is a sky maiden. Okay, and right off the bat, we recognize feminine with the creation story. So there's a sky maiden, and she walks around the back of a turtle. And she scatters herbs and leeks and things like this as she walks. When she initially fell, she fell from the skies. Okay, think of the Great Bear constellation with this, because the Great Bear constellation is the Sky Maiden. It's a she bear. Okay, so you have the Sky Maiden falls toward water, and this parallels the water lass of the Kalevala, and the otters and beavers brought up dry land, and then she's every time she walked and made a circle around, things got bigger and bigger and grew more and more and more. Okay, she walked around the back of a turtle. Now, that Sky Maiden creation story, walking around the back of the turtle, you'll hear many that say that turtle's back is America. It's not. That turtle's back is the Taiga biome. That's exactly the circumpolar tegabiome, the circumpolar bear that goes around that back of the turtle. Again, round, showing a roundness belief in the creation story, in our northern pagan tradition. So, the Baba Yaga, if you remember, was had a courtyard, a circled courtyard. I'm not going to go back through the whole book. It's in that book, Baba Yaga Unveiled. And if you threw down a towel, it became a river that she had to go get across. And then what did you do? Then the children had to throw down a brush, and the brush became a thick forest that she couldn't chew through. Now, what is this thing supposed to be? This is supposed to be a catcher of dreams. This is supposed to be webs here that catch the bad dreams, the nightmares. That's what this is supposed to be. It's not. This is, right here you have it. I'm gonna imagine this like this on top of a globe, okay? What you have is, this is the lower timberline, and this is the upper timberline. Up here is Baliokul. This is where it's frozen. This is the Arctic. Here's your mast, your center mast right here. Famous roof beam, cosmic axis, okay? Now, what you would have then is you would have a bear that's going around this. Okay, remember, it's a she-bear. It's a sky maiden. And you have your bear going around this. Now, in the Baba Yaga story, you throw down the comb, or you throw down the towel, which becomes a river, the Milky Way, and then you throw down the brush, which becomes a thick forest that the bear can't chew through. Now, the bear was made to be the nightmare. Mare, feminine. So, this right here is not a catcher of bad dreams. That is Abrahamic, and by the third generation is fact. This being a dream catcher is an Abrahamic misrepresentation of it. This is the wheel of life. It's a wheel of life. And as the sky maiden goes around the wheel of life, things grow. Things are created. It starts in spring, goes through fall. It shows a birth, a life, a death, and then a rebirth. Over and over and over. A reincarnation. This is the wheel of life. And that's what it represents. It is not a bad dream nightmare catcher.